On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, more money, more time, more fun.
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Sean Yesner, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Sean Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law, and welcome back, George Curbelo. You're a financial coach. How you doing, George?
Happy days. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. I am another year around the sun, another year and a week around the sun, and things are going good.
Many blessings on that. I can imagine the 50th birthday can be a warm-hearted event with family and friends, but you're old, dude.
Yeah, I am. My family came into town. Obviously, 50 is kind of a big one. You know, the next thing I get to do is call the doctor and get my colonoscopy scheduled. So,
oh boy,
it's all fun.
Yay!
So, what we wanted to talk about this week. So, I participated in something called the More Money, More Time, More Fun Summit, hosted by Tiffany Kellogg. She's been a guest on the show multiple times. George and I interviewed her a few weeks ago. In fact, I got to go back and double check. That might have even been the title of that show with Tiffany, but. She hosted a summit December 9, so as you're listening to this, the summit is about a week over. I assume she'll be doing it again. If not, I assume she'll be doing similar things. But the whole concept of the summit is to create more money in less time so that you can have more fun. And so everything was geared towards one of those three topics. I spoke to the more money part, especially coming from the perspective of the Crushing Debt podcast and being an attorney and helping to eliminate debt. You know, that was my perspective. What are some strategies? So what I thought today would be a good episode for you and I to kind of brainstorm after I've already talked at the summit. And I'll bring up some of the stuff I talked about, and maybe we'll bring up some stuff that I didn't talk about. So if you did attend the summit, thank you. But maybe you'll get some content in today's podcast slightly different than what I discussed at the summit. But I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about how to generate more money.
I would think that's a good topic because I'm not sure you're on the more fun part, but we'll keep you on there from at least on the money side.
I am already so much fun. I don't need anything there.
And can I just say though, it was episode 343, and you're lucky. It was happy business, happy partner, happy life. So
okay.
You're good. You're good. You're covered, buddy.
Cool. Well, we get to promote Tiffany now twice with the summit. So before we launch into that, I do want to talk about one of our two sponsors, Sam Cohen of Attorneys First Insurance. Visit his website, which is attorneysfirst.com. What Sam does is he provides E&O insurance, malpractice insurance, but only to attorneys and title companies wherever they are in the U.S. I know he's got to focus on Florida. I know he's got to focus on Alaska. I know he's got to focus, I think, on Texas, if I recall. But if you are an attorney or own a title company anywhere in the country, go to attorneysfirst.com. Sam is not a hard sell. He will help you compare apples to apples, what you got with what he can provide. And if you can't do better than what you got, he won't quote you and he won't try to hard sell you. So Sam at attorneysfirst.com or attorneysfirst.com. Thank you, Sam, for being a longtime sponsor, longtime friend of the show. But for those of you that don't know, I've written now 2 books. The first one was called Crushing Debt.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine that.
Creative.
I know. Well, so what I did was when I got to around episode 100, I think,
right,
100-ish, I took all the content that I had created to that point and I transcribed it and I printed it out and I started compiling it into chapters and then just filled in the pieces. But the Crushing Debt podcast created the Crushing Debt book.
Nice.
And then a couple of years after that, so now a couple of years ago, got bit by the bug to write a second book. And so I wrote a second book called Become Debt Free in 1 Hour or Less.
Okay, that's sign me up.
Yeah. So the concept of the book isn't that you're going to read it and an hour later become debt free.
Oh, well, come on, man.
Sorry.
It's a little misleading then.
But no, because the concept of the book is you can take the strategies in the book.
Right.
Those strategies can be implemented in less than an hour.
Got it. Good.
Then you can become debt free.
Makes sense.
So what I thought I'd do is just go through kind of the outline of the book and we could talk about that. First thing I talk about in the book is to get educated.
I like the idea.
Well, that's kind of where you come in, right?
I would think so. I think a lot of times we think, there's so much information that's out on the internet, and what makes sense and what applies to us in our lives. So I think it's important to educate ourselves to understand the basis of money. Why, again, we know how to make it, right? But what do we do with it? And a lot of times it's the investing, the cryptos, it's this, like that's what you hear about money. But like the education for me, it's, what do you do with the savings? What do you do with the spending? Being intentional with that money itself. The behaviors that are tied to it. I think none of us have experienced, receiving tons of Amazon packages because we felt, great the night before, the day before itself, and said, you know what, F the world, we're loving this, and I'm going to buy myself that Crushing Debt book that I've been wanting.
There is still time before Christmas.
There you go.
It's a great little stocking stuffer.
It's a great stocking stuffer, that's for sure. And it won't pull the whole stocking off the fireplace, but
won't.
It's good.
And I think I have it priced at like $9.99.
I like
$9.99.
That is a good, even a white elephant gift itself. I think it's a good one to get around.
I participated in a white elephant with my networking group that all knew that I had written this book, and so that was my white elephant gift.
That's pretty good, but pretty lame. It's okay.
It's a white elephant.
I like it though.
Whatever, but it is a quick read. It's not going. It didn't make much sense to me to have a book about eliminating debt and then price the book at $500.
Kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But, some of the other stuff I talk about in that section of the book is, create your budget. Know your budget, which I know you
know how to create
about.
one.
Know
right?
how to create a
That's
budget.
the other thing, too. I mean, and here's the thing, guys. There's no wrong answer in regards to the budget itself. The spending plan, it's a piece of paper and a pen. Start there. You have Excel spreadsheets. You have programs that do it. Whatever your comfort level is and related to the tool, it's not the tool, it's how you use the tool that you have to work through. So the education piece really falls into that for that too.
I was listening to another podcast or listening to a speaker or something, and he was talking about a follow-up system. So
Right.
after you meet with the client, what's your follow-up system? And someone asked him, what is the best follow-up system to use? And his answer was the one that you will use.
Right.
And I think the same kind of applies to a budget. In other words, what's the best way to budget? Well, whatever budget you're going to use. So if that means, I know from Excel what I'm going to spend every month. I know from QuickBooks what I'm going to spend every month. Maybe that's good enough.
Yep.
If you need to write it down on a piece of paper, if you need to write it down and track it in some computer program, I think that's good enough. Which budget is best for me? The budget that you're going to use and stick to.
Absolutely. I think you had mentioned other types of tools that people need to learn how to use. You had like knowing your credit score, the credit score report, how to use it. So we know the number, but there's so much behind that number itself. So educating ourselves regarding that is important. You talk about what is a mutual fund to retirement plans. I've had questions as simple as what's an IRA? And is that the way it makes money? Is that the way? So it's really, you'd be surprised, and these are people that are not teenagers or, you're talking 30, 40 years old of like, what are these tools and how can I use them?
Well, and I said to somebody yesterday, what I do is not rocket science. What you do is not rocket science. But we do it. We do it every day, and so we're familiar with it. And, could I change my own oil? Absolutely. But let the oil change place deal with it because they do it every day. I would do it once
They're
every
the experts. It will take me, right, it'll take us, 3 hours maybe to do it, even if I on a good day.
Well, and I couldn't wear a white shirt like I'm wearing today. I know I'd get oil all over it. So,
well, I get that at lunch, so that's still a problem with me.
That's true, too. But I mean, my point is, don't be intimidated by the fact that you may want to create a budget, and don't feel threatened by the fact that you may not know what some of these terms are. Ask.
Yep.
Ask somebody. Ask me. Ask George. Ask somebody about it.
Yep, I agree. And of course, there's a plethora of information that's out there. I would say start with some, the basic, you have your Dave Ramsey's, there's tools and information that's out there.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's the right information, but for you, go out there, read some things, get comfortable with some of the terminology. Yes, you can go into Google and it's like, what is a budget? Trust me, you'll get a ton of information on what that
links
is.
Galore. Although Dave Ramsey doesn't like me. Well, Dave Ramsey doesn't know me personally.
I was about to say.
If he did, he probably wouldn't like me. But he doesn't like me because I'm a bankruptcy attorney.
That's true. That's
So-
true. You are evil, but he's pretty nice, guys. It's all right.
And a lot of what he says, I agree with most of what he says. Not everything, but most.
And that's the thing. There is not one philosophy. There's not that one. It's what works for you. Go back to that concept. It's what you guys need to figure out what you want to do, how it's going to work for you, and how it's going to. You'll be motivated to actually get it done. I think that's the key in all of this.
Right. So that's the first part of the book, and the first part of what I probably will, want to talk about. Not very much. Where I focused a lot of my presentation at the summit was the next two sections.
Right.
So the next section is increasing income, and the section after that is decreasing expenses. And it's a lot of the same concepts that we've been talking about
Right.
before. How do you increase income? You get a raise. You ask your boss for a raise. You increase the number of leads or referrals or clients that you're generating.
Right.
You get a second job. You get a side hustle. You create a side hustle. What are some of the other ways that you would increase income?
So, I mean, I think you hit most of them there. I think for me, are you happy in your career? Are you happy in your job? Are you happy with as a business owner, the products that you're selling? Is there opportunity for growth? And that's individual or business. You have to look at where you are, and increasing money itself, personally or business, really comes back to passion, comes back to what you're doing in your career, what you're doing in your business. And again, for me, it's, are you charging enough as a business owner? Are you selling the right products that are that people want? It's, again, that simple concept of supply and demand still holds true, regardless of the business you have. So these are the things you have to really look through. And for me, I think it's, as a business owner as well, is like, what are the trends? What are people, you have to be in tune with your customers. If you're not in tune, you'll be surprised how much money you leave on the table.
Not only your customers, but the market.
Yeah, the market. Thank you.
When are the times during the year when my business will get more money? When are the times
Right.
during the year when people just don't want to talk about bankruptcy and foreclosure,
Right.
and so they're not gonna hire me. If I recall, one of the guests that we talked to recently was talking about increasing prices. Was it Jason from Fortress?
Yes.
Asset Protection
That's
was
right.
talking about raising prices, and I continue to play with that on a regular basis.
Right.
And I had somebody that asked me for a quote for custom commercial lease agreement, real estate commercial lease agreement, and I just blurted out $250 more than the number that I would have said
Right.
a month ago.
Okay.
And they said okay, and they hired me.
Nice.
So had they said no, it would have been bad to lose out on that income. But you see my desk.
Yeah.
I got a stack of plenty to do that I'm not.
That's
gonna be
a good
losing.
thing.
Yeah. So I agree. Raising income, I think, is raising your prices rather is probably the fastest way to get a jolt of income quickly.
Yep. I would say, too, from a business owner, organizing your expenses as well. So you're saying, now that we educate ourselves with a budget or a spending plan for the business or personal, you'll be surprised. You'll start to notice where money is, bleeding, where is things going. So sometimes organizing our spending and the budget itself starts to show, wait, I'm actually spending a little too much in this area, which kind of leads into your, decreasing expenses.
Yeah.
You start to have a better vision of where the money is going. Now you have a decision: do I like that? And that's where that may be another source of increasing. Again, not necessarily your income, but how much money you're actually pocketing home to actually spend on either the business or yourself.
Well, yeah, and I told you before we started recording, I saw a charge when I was reconciling my books, however long ago, $140, $150 for an annual subscription to a antivirus protection for my computers.
Yep.
But I have a different company that provides it. So I'm like, why am I spending $150, even though it's only $150 on an annual basis? The law firm's 10 years old.
Right.
So now we're talking about $1,400, $1,500 over the
Yep.
life of the law firm
Yep.
that I've spent on duplicate antivirus protection that I don't use.
Yep. That's
And just by keeping track of the budget, I was able to find that.
There you go. So I mean that's where I could see side hustles. We said increasing prices. For me, I think the other thing too is know your worth, know your value as an employee and the business itself. So, because sometimes we undervalue. We're like, oh, nobody wants to hire somebody like me, or no one wants to buy products from me. That blah blah, whatever it might be.
The old
sometimes
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, we play with our heads regarding a lot of these kind of things, and I one of those. We've got to get out of our head sometimes and really, say, hey, look, assess, here are the skill sets, here's the things that I bring to the table, here's what the business value I bring to my customers. Is it worth more? Test out the market. I mean, how many times I've talked to individuals like, your resume, how many times do you update it? And they're like, well, the next time I need to go for a job interview,
Yeah, exactly.
which might be 14 years from now. Like,
Right.
That's not the right approach. I think once it's just staying productive, staying on top of these types of things, especially as an individual, you want to, again, how much do you value you in this situation? So I think that's another thing to keep in mind when we're talking about increasing money.
It's interesting talking to the market. So I had a CPA referral partner of mine refer me a piece of business, and it was the first time, one of the first times he had referred me, and so he said, "What are you going to charge?" And I said, "Well, what do you think? What are your clients used to?"
Right.
And he said, "Oh, my clients would pay between I think he said between $800 and $1,200 for this."
Okay.
Well, prior to talking to the CPA, I had been charging previous clients like $500.
Okay.
And so if he's telling me that his clients will accept between 8 and 12, I said, "You know what? I'll split the difference and tell the client I'll do it for $1,000." He came back, he said, "That works."
Right.
I doubled my price
There you go.
just in a conversation. And just because I asked the question, because I'm good at networking, I'm good at schmoozing, if that's a term.
It is.
I'm good at doing what I do. I'm good at being an attorney. Where I always struggle is I don't want to turn somebody off by quoting something that they believe is too high.
Right.
But I think that goes back to what you said of knowing your worth. In other words, I have been an attorney for 20
Right.
plus years. That's got value to it. I have made a lot of these, newer attorneys that I work with. How do you know that? Well, because I made that mistake.
Exactly.
However many years ago, and I know not to make it again. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for that knowledge of where to step and where not to step.
And I think that's what people don't recognize that. Talking with coaches, talking with mentors, talking with people itself, small business owners, you get into that. Well, what if they don't hire you, or what if they don't? I'm like, okay, well then, that might be a good situation where maybe they're undervaluing you as an individual as part of that, or we have to sell a little bit better sometimes too. Where it's like if people see the value in the product or the work that you do, why would they not? Pay for the best. That's usually what we normally always do with this too.
Well, and it goes back to the 80-20 rule. In other words, 20% of your clients are going to give you 80% of your revenue. 80% of your clients are only going to give you 20% of your revenue. So if you've got a client who's arguing with you over price, chances are they're in the 80%
Right.
that's only going to give you 20% of your revenue. And there's been plenty of clients that I've said no thank you to because it means I get the opportunity to work on a different project that's
right.
going to make me more money. And I don't say to them, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to make enough money off of you." What I say is, I don't think I can accomplish your goals.
That's it.
I don't want to hurt you by having you hire me.
That's it.
I don't want you to complain about me, about my price structure. So I think it'd be better if I just said no thank you.
Right. And hey, if you feel like you can find better value for a lower price, that's on them. For me, it is a market. People have the choice, and you give that choice to the individual. But hey, you also have a choice as a business owner to who you want to work with as well.
Yeah.
And what products you want to sell. So
Yeah.
I think the price point is always something that you can decide on.
So what about, you touched on it earlier, decreasing expenses. What are some other ideas you have to decrease expenses?
So the obvious things you could talk, the coffee shops and beer and all those kind of things that we may like as that soothes the soul at the end of a hard work week. Streaming services, you said, I think we have mentioned in the past itself, like cutting the cord is funny. I think cable is getting,
Cutting the cable cord.
Yeah, we're getting there. But the one thing I've noticed with folks too is like, hey, I need to have every subscription service in there's so many out there. I always ask, clients, I'm like, do you watch that much television to be able to justify all of those, all of those services?
Well, and I'll do you one better. Is there anything else you could be doing instead of watching all
Wow.
that television? You know, I mean,
That goes back to the increasing the income, right?
Exactly. Well, but what I'm talking about is, like, for example, we just got, I think I mentioned, one of the things I did for Black Friday, my TV died. Mm-hmm. And so I got a new TV, but I saw, because it was Black Friday, there were TVs on special. So I went from a 55-inch, nice enough TV,
Right.
to a 75-inch
Nice.
Samsung
Well, excuse me.
for about half the price
Of
that
course.
I paid however long ago for the 55.
Nice.
But it was interesting. I was sitting on my couch last night, actually. Both kids were in bed. I'm sitting there. The house is quiet. I've got some hot tea that I was drinking that kind of, calms me down a little
Yep,
bit.
yep.
And a glass of bourbon right
Yeah, I was
next
about to
it.
say, where's that? Where's that in the glass?
I say hot tea, I mean bourbon. I didn't have the TV on. I have this brand new 75-inch TV. I didn't have the TV
Too
on.
funny.
I didn't need it. I watch TV.
Yep.
I watch sports. I watch, all the different shows and whatnot. But I didn't need the TV on.
And you'd be surprised, to be honest with you, if you're a young entrepreneur or have the second side hustle or doing all those kind of things, you're not going to have the time to do those things itself. So I think there's opportunities to be able to cut those expenses. And you're talking, it's only $14 a month. But again, add that times 12. It starts to add up times 5 years. That money will increase and give you opportunities to say, well, instead of it on streaming, I can then use it for something else in the budget money thing that we're doing here.
One of the other things I thought of, and I'm not quite sure where this goes, probably increasing income, probably decreasing expenses, but using debt wisely.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be afraid of debt, but use debt wisely. And this is not my formal legal position, and I'm sure that technically what I'm going to say could be shot down by the IRS and by your CPA. But if you got, for example, a credit card, a points credit card, and you use that for your business, then you personally could take advantage of whatever the point rewards is. Now, I guess theoretically you'd have to report it as income to the IRS.
Right.
No one does that. So again, not my legal advice. But, one way to increase your income, if you use a credit card and pay it off at the end of the month, and then at the end of the year you take those points, you cash those in, now you've given yourself some money at the end of the year to, whatever, go on vacation, buy Christmas presents.
Whatever it might be.
Save for a rainy day, invest, whatever it is you're going to do. So that could be another way to increase income. And plus, if you pay off the card at the end of every month, you've decreased your expenses because you're not paying interest income.
Correct.
The more that I get to understand it and the more that I deal with finances and with people's finances, interest income is just giving money away.
It is.
I don't think there's any bigger waste of money than
Think about it like
interest
now.
income.
I think some of the interest rates right now are like 27, 28. And if you do they call them the fast cash places, but those are loan sharks, right?
Right.
I mean, that's all it is. Those are 120%. It's astronomical, some of these interest rates itself.
Well, and the interest income is how the credit card companies and the bank, that's their revenue.
Of course.
If everybody on the planet charged and paid it off at the end of the month, credit card companies would go out of business.
Absolutely.
I mean, they make a few dollars here and there from the charge itself, but basically, if we all paid, the credit card companies would fold.
Yep.
They themselves would go bankrupt. How funny would that be?
Hey, well, you got a good lawyer here to help them out.
Call me, Visa. I'll file your Chapter 11. So the last thing I talk about in the book is then getting to eliminating debt for all of those reasons. In other words, if we can eliminate the debt, we can eliminate the interest income.
Yep.
We can eliminate the payments. We can free up cash flow. So what are some ways... it's probably more my area, but what are some ways that you would cut
Well, I
debt?
know one way you can do that, my friend. But some of the other debt that we talk about too. I mean, we had an interview like just probably a few months ago now. But the medical debt, we've got different types of debt that obviously we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. For me, eliminating debt. Don't do that either.
We could eliminate debt. That would be good.
Debt itself. So here's the thing. Debt snowball, debt snow avalanche. There's so many ways to handle it itself. So we need more money. So once we've done the income piece, once we've done the decreasing expenses, now it's we need to have money going towards the debt itself. So we need to, basically big payments to take care of this debt.
So I will admit, I don't remember. I know one of them is you pay off the highest interest rate first.
Yep.
And the other one is you pay off the lowest balance first.
Correct. So Avalanche is the interest.
Okay.
Snowball is the lowest. And there's kind of research that you probably save a little bit more on interest when you do it through the Avalanche than the Snowball. But overall, they're both good plans on how to eliminate the debt itself. For me, I think the biggest difference is how you feel.
Yeah.
For me, if you've never had debt, taken care of debt or anything like that, you need fast wins. And for me, the debt snowball allows you to get those fast wins,
I agree with you there. I like the snowball for that reason because you're eliminating the debt. Well, I remember what it felt like when we paid off my wife's car.
Yeah.
I remember what it felt like when we paid off. I think we had bought a new air conditioning unit. We had to finance that when we finally paid that off. I remember what it was like to pay off. I don't know if I mentioned this on the show or not.
Let's go.
On a whim. I didn't think my student loans qualified, but went onto the website. I typed in my information, and I got an email back 2 weeks ago that my loans qualify for the $10,000 of debt forgiveness.
Nice.
And I owe about 11 or 12.
Well, there you go. That's one way to eliminate debt too.
Once the court system gets its act under control,
Come on
and
now.
they release some of these holds and whatnot, my student loan debt is going to drop to $1,000 or less.
That's nice. Yeah, my brother's in the same boat. I think all of us as an opportunity that we need to take advantage. Some people are like, well, 10 grand is just with our doctors and some of our lawyers. I get that,
Yeah.
but I mean, 10 grand it's something.
Yeah, it's
and
something.
I think provides support.
I mean, for me, my student loans are 20 plus years old, so
Right.
that's why they're at the balance they are. But I get it. Someone that incurred 300 grand, 400
Right.
grand, 500 grand of student loan debt, 10 grand's not going to you're not going to feel it.
Yep.
I've been paying on mine for 20 years now, so mine should be. And actually, now that I've eclipsed my 50th birthday, even if I were just to continue paying the minimum monthly payments, I'd be done paying my student loans when I was 55. So in 5 more years.
Well, at least we got it a little sooner than that.
This will take
your
5
birthday
years
gift.
off. Yeah, this will take 5 years off. And I get it. I understand there are people, well, I paid off my student loans, so how come I'm not?
Right.
I get it, but for this point, I'm going to be a little bit selfish.
No worries. Yeah, just take it. We'll take
I owe
it.
about 10, 11 grand. Somebody offered me a $10,000 discount. I'm going to take it.
Yep. The other thing too for businesses when you talk about eliminating debt too, I think you had mentioned it too. Like, don't create new debt. Like once you get into a position where the debt is eliminated, how do we have a system that allows us to, if you need to create debt, pay it off at the end of the month. So again, that's going back to that education of paying off your bills each month, especially with our credit cards. But then how do we what are some of the techniques in regards to not incurring new debt each month?
What I would say is, to the extent you can, avoid the short-term loans,
Right.
avoid the cabbages, avoid the on-decks, avoid those companies if you can, because I have more business clients that have problems with those types of loans
Makes sense.
than any other type of client. Now, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you have to do it. The business runs into a cash crunch. I get it. But I would avoid that stuff. The other thing in terms of don't create new debt, again, be familiar with your budget.
Yep.
What kind of stuff do you need? So we needed a new copier. Okay, fine. I'll go out and finance a new copier. We need it.
Yep.
But I'm not going to buy a copier just because I want a new copier. I'm not going to get the most expensive copier.
Right.
I don't need color copies in my office for what I do. Be nice to have, but I don't need it.
So
So
you
when,
get a good used deal.
yeah, when I got the choice between you can pay X for color copies and you can pay Y for black and white copies, I don't need color, so let me go with the black and white.
Right.
I don't need a machine that has to be able to fax. I mean, it's not
Really?
It's not 1990 whatever.
I think you have a phone that can do that for you, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. So, when I'm looking at buying new equipment, I'm looking at what do I really need in terms of that new equipment. I'm also the kind that I basically use things till the wheels fall off.
Yep.
I mean, literally, like I said, with this copier, the copier that it replaced, literally the wheels were falling off of it. literally. It had started to break. The feeder wasn't working right. And when we went back and looked, I had that copier. I think I had financed it over a 3-year term initially, and I had it for 5 years beyond that. I had the thing for 8 years.
Wow.
Before I replaced it. My wife's car, I said I got really happy for paying off my wife's car. Again, literally the wheels are falling off of that. We got that car when she was pregnant with my oldest, who's now, as we record this, he's now 11. So that car is 11 or 12 years old.
Nice.
At this point.
I
It's
mean,
got over 100,000 miles on it.
They're made to last. We have to remember that. And I think you touch on it a little bit too, is this impulse buying. So personal or business, you want the flashiest, you want the best, you want but let's still understand what the budget is and what we can fit within that budget too.
A lot of times, taking a break. So if I know I want to buy, so with this copier, if I know I want to buy it, before I make the decision to actually buy it, I sit on it for 24 hours.
There you go.
And then the next morning, if I'm still feeling the same way, okay, let me pull the trigger and buy it. Now, for the copier where the old one was breaking, I didn't take that much time.
Good tips, because that's that Amazon, right? My wife is very notorious with put it in the cart. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. We'll see what happens. If I'm still feeling it, then we'll see where we go. But these are little techniques that we can, kind of teach ourselves.
Yeah.
And it might be for our goals episode, to kind of what are some of the things to, what kind of new habits. So there you go. Sneak peek by Sean here.
Yeah, sneak peek. What are your goals for next year? May or may not be what we talk about. Next week.
Exactly.
God, anything else? Anything else you can think of?
So as you can see with this listing, guys, it is simple. We didn't go into the cryptos or the investings or to the get a foundation in the way you handle your money. I think it's so important, even going into the new year. This is the foundation that's necessary. I love how your book breaks that down. And I would say, people pick it up, get the information that's necessary to start your journey. And regardless of age, start your journey so that you can have that financial freedom in whatever that means to you in the near future.
So if you are interested, I think both books are available on Amazon. Crushing Debt, you can actually buy a physical copy of, and Amazon will mail it to you. But both are available in digital format. So if you want to get PDF versions of the books, you can buy those on Amazon. The other way to get Become Debt Free, a lot of our listeners are listeners because they got the Become Debt Free book for free.
Nice.
If you go, the website is SeanMYesner.com/Become Debt Free. And my name, Sean M as in Michael, SeanMYesner.com/Become Debt Free, and you'll get a free PDF digital version of the Become Debt Free book. And that'll also get you onto the list to get updates on when new podcast episodes come out and all that kind of stuff. So it's all part of that same funnel. And a lot of our listeners came to us that way as well. So a lot of our listeners may already have copies of the book. And so
it's time. It's that time of year.
There you
to
go.
Spread the cheer between Christmas and, hey, the brand new year, new you. I would say with a Sean Yesner book, I think that might be a good start as well.
Sure, I'll take it, or I'll sell it. Speaking of, we are getting into the new year. If you do want to support us beyond just listening, you can go to the Patreon page, which is patreon.com/crushingdebt. Again, we appreciate everybody who listens to the show. If you feel like doing more, if you feel like giving us a little Christmas gift, you can go to the Crushing Debt page on patreon.com, and that'll allow you to toss us a few bucks, and we appreciate it. But if you don't do it, we still appreciate you listening. That's fine. I do also want to talk about our second sponsor, Mark Purvis of LegacySpotlight.com. Now, Mark is our editor, so he helps us sound good when you're listening to the show. But he also is an award-winning videographer with 20-plus years of experience. And so he created LegacySpotlight.com to capture the stories of previous generations for future generations. So talk about a good Christmas gift. Preserving the stories of your parents or grandparents for your kids or grandkids would be a great present. Again, that's LegacySpotlight.com. Other than that, I know that we've got the Curbelo Financial TikTok channel, which is, I think, TikTok Curbelo Financial Coach is the TikTok channel there. I am also trying to put content into my YouTube channel, so if you search Yesner Law on YouTube, I'm going to try to update it here hopefully soon, but I've got some other video content up there on YouTube. These videos that we're recording here hopefully will be coming out pretty soon.
That's what I'm hoping as well. New year, new us.
There you go. So you'll be able to see some of these episodes. You'll be able to see my side profile and George.
Some clips of us on a not flattering. Let's put it like that.
There you go. My side profile and George being fuzzy because I'm close to the camera. You'll be able to see that as well. So otherwise, I think that'll do it for this week's episode. Again, the Become Debt. I think it was in Crushing Debt, the book, where I first came up with more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money. And then I just continued that theme into the Become Debt Free book.
And you have, we've heard it on multiple podcasts,
Yeah.
and like Regis and Kelly. No, I'm sorry, that wasn't even an old reference there.
Regis and Kelly, good Lord. I don't even know who does that show anymore.
I think it's Ryan Seacrest or Michael Strahan. I don't know. Yeah,
Michael Strahan was on it for a while, but I work, so I don't watch those. I'm not at home when those
Then
episodes
thank God
air.
we don't know it. Then here we go. We're
So-
good there. But hey, we're good, buddy.
Yeah, meanwhile, speaking of wheels falling off, I think that'll do it for this week's episode, and we will talk to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt podcast.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Sean or connect with us on social media. Sean Yesner and Yesner Law PL are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.